Welcome to the Numerology and Astrology for January 14th, 2022. If we add all those numbers together, we get the number 12, and if you add the 1 and the 2 together, you get the number 3. The number 3 reminds us that triangles are positive and they represent all journeys in life. That means in life, there are beginnings, middles, and ends. The number 3 shows up as an indicator when angels are trying to get our attention. If one looks down and there are 3 coins, that is a positive message from an angel. If one sees 3 feathers, that is also something that indicates that angels are trying to help us recognize their presence and to give us feedback about something we recently did or were thinking. But when they also use it as a warning sometimes, and 3 startling events back to back are trying to tell us to pay attention to that something that is very off and that we are in danger. And that danger is immediately in front of us. Such messages at first may seem coincidental, but they are not random messages. They are intended to startle us, and that is important because usually there is something coming up quickly. The angels are directing us to wake up because we need to become more alert so we can respond in a more conscious way and avoid a problem. Remember to stay open today to the various synchronicities that may happen. Notice when anything repeats 3 times and then look around and pay attention. The number 3 reminds us that while we have a human body, the number 1, a mental body, the number 2, we also have a spiritual body, the number 3. When 3 show up, it is to remind us that our spiritual self needs much nurturing as our body and our mind. The astrology today. The moon continues in Mercury-ruled Gemini, and we are in the process of Mercury going retrograde, first in Aquarius, but then it will end up in Capricorn. While we want clear communication with others, keeping things in a logical and rational perspective are challenging for the next 3 weeks. The moon and Neptune square and then will oppose Mars. This brings a lack of clarity. Know that decision making is very skewed for the next while. This Mercury retrograde will last until February 3rd. It is time to review and make some decisions from deep places of meditation, inner work, and therapeutic modalities. There is deep healing that is needed, but that healing comes from self-awareness. Communication connections shatter in the mind's demand for what the ego wants. Such patterns never manifest in constructive ways and lead us into those old and familiar places that are causing illness and dysfunction. Venus prepares to come out of retrograde on the 29th, and so again, there's just no energy for change at this time. My quote for today: confidence does not come from arrogance. Confidence does not come from attachment to someone or something. Confidence is not there to give ego or arrogance a place to prove one's superiority. Confidence comes from knowing and trusting in one's ability to figure something out on our own. Confidence needs no assurance from others. Confidence comes from self-reliance and a willingness to walk a path alone. Confidence is silent, while insecurities need another's approval, validation, or comment. And my blog for today. I believe we are beginning to awaken, and as that process evolves, we become more aware of those things that feel radically off, which on one level is not remotely difficult to observe in our crazy current reality. But it is more than that. Our reality is a collection of thoughts that have been made up in our minds and reinforced by a desperate rigidity that our thoughts need to be real, validated, and manifested. But that is not true. Spiritual consciousness shows us again and again that thoughts and beliefs do not stand the test of time, and that the mind is a trap that the gods of karma use effectively again and again to pull us into the familiar places of our own habitual dysfunction. History is filled with the records of those that insisted that they knew the truth, only to be proved incorrect later on, as clarity replaced beliefs. While I know our thoughts create this bubble of reality in which we live, it is important to know that everyone is also living within their own personal bubble. That means that there are millions of small personal psychological bubbles that make up a series of larger bubbles that become part of our social structures and cultural identities. Notice that cities have a cultural identity and a type of structure. Notice that areas are also used as we define ourselves. Being raised in Texas, I have an open-minded, bigger-than-life Texas persona and bubble. But I also have a dancer persona identify with art and music, and that has its own energy and flow and bubble. And I am an American with all that freedom-loving individuality and cultural superiority that provides another bubble. And I have many more bubbles just as everyone else does. But in the end of this life, do any of those really matter? Not really. Those bubbles that help to define us will evaporate with this life. Bubbles are never our authentic self. When something manages to align with our values, we want to use that energy in that bubble to assist us towards attaining some of that frequency and identity. While this is a path towards deeper places of self-discovery, in the end, it always comes back to us. Confidence comes from the courage to walk paths alone and gain experiences that build self-esteem and show that there are no shortcuts to personal wisdom. I remember when I was working in Beverly Hills and Santa Barbara, I was filled with ideas and dreams and wanting to have help and support from those wiser than myself and those that had experience to know what steps needed to be done next and in what order. But over and over again, every powerful person just calmly said in one way or another, when you get the project or book done and published and out there in the world and have many giving you lots of external validation, then you can come to me with that idea, book, or project, and I will be willing to take the time to look at it, but not before that. If you can create something that has enough substance and you have enough of your energy and time into it, then it has its own life force and may have staying power. In other words, no one ever helped in the ways that I expected. Those that have struggled and worked to arrive at places of power and influence are not willing to deal with those at the beginning of the journey, and at least not without getting paid in some way that was significant and outrageous. There were those that wanted my books, and they wanted me to give them the rights and control over those books, and only then would they help. But I knew that that was a trap and that they were not helping me. They were just using me to get something that they could not come up with themselves. If one has the energy and ideas to generate great things, one will have to do a lot of legwork to get them out into the world. History is filled with great souls and artists who were very creative in their life, but they had no ability to market themselves and get things out there, like Van Gogh. It often took them dying and time to pass before their genius was recognized, which is sad, but shows how important it is to become a whole and balanced person that is willing to follow up and follow through with those talents and skills that one has been gifted. Thanks, everyone.